Too often when we think of professional, daily wear fragrances for the office or other just semi-formal events, we think of aromatic fougères, blue, fresh, aquatic fragrances, and while those are great options, they are not the only options. I'm going to introduce you guys to 8 fragrances that are as professional as they are interesting and unique. Stick around for this one, guys. Hey, welcome back to Real Scent Review. So if you're like me, you probably wear a fragrance every day. Maybe it's the same one, maybe you have a different one for each day of the week, something like that. The point is, you're an average person. You like to smell good. Maybe you work in an office environment. Maybe you have regular meetings. You don't want to come off as challenging, absolutely. But you also want to smell a little bit more refined than the average guy who's just wearing the same aromatic fougère or blue aquatic every single day. So I've prepared a list of 8 fragrances that fit into the category of unique yet professional and interesting at the same time. These are not going to be offensive to anybody. They're going to be perfect for daily wear, office wear. These are going to be fragrances that the everyday guy will enjoy, but at the same time, the office fragrance fanatic is going to really appreciate these as well. So if you're ready, let's jump into this list. First one on the list is going to be Prada L'homme EDT. The main notes in this one are going to be iris, cardamom, and amber. So yeah, at one point, this was a super hyped fragrance. It was very well known for being a very clean, very, attractive, inoffensive, yet interesting fragrance. So we get kind of a spicy cardamom note that's also going to be mixed with a powdery kind of makeup-y iris accord. Gonna give it a really soapy characteristic, drying down to some beautiful vanillic, powdery, dusty amber. Smells like a luxury soap, this does. It is one of the most amazing fragrances I've ever smelled while maintaining simplicity, if that makes sense. It's as intriguing as it is simple and appealing and enjoyable. To this day, it is absolutely one of my most complimented fragrances. It is just ultra versatile, although it does lean kind of towards the sweet side as opposed to the fresher side. So maybe if you're a person who takes seasonality into consideration when choosing a fragrance, you might choose to wear this in cooler, fresher weather as opposed to hotter, humid weather. That's my take on it, but regardless of the temperature you wear this in, it's gonna turn heads. Awesome fragrance, Prada L'homme EDT. Next one is gonna be Malbec Black by Boticario. So the main notes in this one are gonna be cardamom, vanilla, and sandalwood. So this opens up with a spicy, kind of sweet, maybe ever so slightly soapy cardamom. Reminds me a lot of the opening of Bulgari's Man in Black. This fragrance in general reminds me a lot of Bulgari's Man in Black, but I prefer this one. This one has a little touch of smokiness, the spicy, beautifully done cardamom in the top as well, with some vanilla that never goes cloyingly sweet. It's just there to add a sweet backbone to the spicy cardamom. If that note profile sounds slightly challenging to you, I can understand why, but I promise you it's really not. This is kind of just like an oriental yet casual fragrance, extremely versatile. It maintains a very interesting quality while completely avoiding going to challenging territory. Very mass appealing. Yet, like I said, interesting at the same time. It's got a little bit of spiciness, a little bit of woodiness, even a little touch of smoke and some sweetness from that vanilla. Never goes overboard in any of those characteristics. It's a perfectly blended, very balanced, unique fragrance with some serious professionality and a lot of mass appeal to it. This is Malbec Black by Boticario. Okay, I'm gonna eat my words and go with a fresh aquatic. This time it's going to be Ask by Maiora. So the main notes in this one are going to be fir, driftwood, and amberwood. In certain aspects, this reminds me of a green fragrance, maybe even leaning into aromatic fougère territory, because the fir is very prominent. It's going to add a very minty, pine, like woody characteristic to this fragrance, maybe even with a touch of citrus to it as well. However, the base is all about really salty, very dry driftwood, and this dries down to some relatively sweet, kind of woody, maybe ever so slightly bubblegummy amberwood. You know, the note that Invictus is known for. Well, it just so happens that this fragrance here reminds me of Invictus Aqua 2016, but better. It's a more mature version of that fragrance, in my opinion. Amazing, aquatic. It's a very realistic aquatic. Like I said, it has pine and salty, woody driftwood. This fragrance reminds me of being in a forest next to a beach, you know, with that added really appealing amberwood accord in the bottom as well. One caveat with this one, the performance is really good on it. So this is one that I would consider maybe applying with a lot of lead time before I go to the office. And you know, it is aquatic, it's fresh, it's a little bit piney, it's got that salty, dry wood characteristic. This is one that I think really shines in warmer weather. In fact, the hotter, the better. So keep that in mind. However, super professional. Nothing juvenile about this, although it does contain amberwood. This is blended in a very masterful way. This is a totally unknown brand outside of Europe. I mean, outside of Italy, really. I've never met anybody else who has heard of this brand. But this is called Ask by Maiora. You should really check this house out, guys, if you're into niche fragrances with just amazing quality, amazing performance, and originality. Next one on this list is going to be Black Musk by Montale. So the main notes in this one are going to be leather, musk, and guaiac wood. So this is likely one of the most underrated Montales I've ever come across. I've never heard anybody else talk about this, but in my opinion, it's absolutely one of the best fragrances from the house. So, you know, this one is unique because it's very simple. So you're getting leather, a very dry type of leather, a very likable, non-animalic leather. It is a little bit dark, but it's also dusty, but, you know, not animalic whatsoever. But it still adds a dark, interesting quality to this fragrance. Also, we're getting a little bit of guaiac wood that's going to add just a generic woodiness with like a little, I don't know, dusting of smoke, light smoke in the background. However, hanging over everything, imposing itself on those two other notes is a very deep, very apparent musk note. So the musk in this one, very powerful, not animalic whatsoever. It's very fluffy, it's very watery in a way, and it's a little bit floral. So it reminds me of kind of like a very watery rose petal with just a lot of fluffiness added to it, if that makes sense. If that description makes you think that this leans into feminine territory, it really doesn't. This is a very masculine fragrance here, Black Musk. And although this note description might come across as challenging or dark or imposing, it's really not. This is one of the smoothest fragrances that I know of, especially coming from the house of Montale. Montale's not really known for its smooth fragrances. This one does have great performance, but the scent profile itself is so professional, but at the same time, it's sexy. It's got a real sexiness to this. Appealing, yes, not challenging, not even in the slightest, apart from its very good performance, but the scent profile, so smooth, so amazing. I cannot believe that this one does not receive more hype than it does. I mean, honestly, it's one of Montale's best fragrances. If you like musk and you like leather, while still being able to wear the fragrance every day to any occasion, don't look any further than this. I mean, this will cover all your bases. You should totally get this one, Black Musk by Montale. Next one on this list is Un Homme by Charles Jourdan. So the main notes in this one are going to be marjoram, anise, and lavender. So right off the bat, this is going to be one for the bosses out there. This one smells very dated. It smells very old-fashioned, but it smells powerful, and it smells like old money. So this one here opens up with a ton of marjoram, So it's going to be a very warm, very spicy, almost licorice-like note in the opening. And then we're going to get some anise, which is going to make this extremely powdery, but like really powdery here. Drying down with some lavender, which is going to give it an even more spicy, aromatic characteristic, lending a soapy quality to the background of this one as well. I have a very high threshold for like old-fashioned aromatic fougere style fragrances. What I mean by that is I really don't consider very many fragrances to be old manny or too dated for my tastes. This one almost pushes into that category even for me. I mean, this smells like something out of the 1940s, even though I wasn't alive back then. It's very old-fashioned. This is something I could see, you know, an older guy in a position of power wearing with an old suit, maybe some overalls. You know, it projects that type of vibe. However, if you're a fan of real, like true aromatic fougères, this is an absolute masterpiece. But I will say that young guys will not like this. That's why I recommend this to, you know, middle-aged guys or older who are in a maybe higher level management position at the office. This is really going to work for you. This is Charles Jourdan Un Homme. Next one on this list is going to be Viride by Orto Parisi. So the main notes in this one, wormwood, juniper, tonka, and incense. So in the opening, to put it very simply, we're gonna get a blast of aromatic absinthe. So it's like a boozy licorice. And in the mid, we're going to get some juniper. So the juniper is like a very effervescent, kind of piney, aromatic wood. In the dry down, nutty sweetness coming from that tonka bean, although it's more of a creaminess. I would not call this a sweet fragrance, but it does have that nutty, creamy characteristic from the tonka bean, and some smoky, woody, resinous incense in the bottom. Although this does have boozy characteristics, it still retains that just classic woody greenness of classic style male fragrances. And yeah, this is for those of you who like aromatic fougères, but you want something just a little bit more daring without losing the professionality, without losing the you know, mass cleanliness appeal of that genre of fragrances. Viride by Orto Parisi. Get your noses on this one, guys. Penultimate fragrance on this list, one of my favorites. This is Russian Leather Eau de Parfum by Molton Brown. So the main notes in this one are going to be cade oil, geranium, and guaiac wood. Cade oil, going to give this a very minty, very piney characteristic. So it smells like being in pine trees. With the geranium, it's going to add even more minty kind of creaminess. It reminds me of being in a pine forest in the wintertime with a lot of frost, maybe even a lot of snow around me, and some guaiac wood, a smoky, burnt, woody accord. So it's going to remind me of being next to a campfire in a pine forest in the winter with a lot of snow around. I've heard other people say that this reminds them of like a minty, smoky Oreo cookie. And I do not disagree. There's some truth to that. You know, the person who said that, you know who you are. You're onto something there. And now that I smell that, I can't unsmell it. No, for real though, this is one of my favorite fragrances. Again, it leans into, you know, aromatic fougere territory. There's a leather-like accord because of that guaiac wood mixed with the cade oil. Almost reminds you of like a cross between an aromatic fougere and a chypre fragrance with some heavy, like minty, creamy geranium and a definite smokiness, a bitterness in the background with that aromatic, just really piney, very piney cade oil. It smells like a classic fragrance with a bit of heft added to it, a little bit of smoke added to it, like I said. Absolute masterpiece. If you're a fan of chypres, if you're a fan of aromatic fougères, especially ones that are very heavy in geranium, and you also like smoke, whew, I don't think it gets much better than this, guys. Russian Leather Eau de Parfum by Molton Brown. Nowadays, this is called Dark Leather Eau de Parfum. It's been renamed for different reasons, but it's the same exact fragrance, same great performance as well. So again, yeah, this is a really strong one, one that I would recommend spraying on before you leave your house in the morning to go to work. If you have a 45-minute commute on the train to work, spray a couple of sprays on before you leave your house, because if you just spray this right away and waltz into the office and you sit next to your coworkers, it could offend someone. But the dry down to this, you know, after 45 minutes, after an hour, very pleasant, very classic smelling, but just, you know, professional and somehow clean despite its heavy note profile. This is a really unique, very special, and just all around amazing fragrance here. And last but certainly not least, it's Pasha Parfum by Cartier. So the main notes in this one are going to be whiskey, ambroxanide, and sandalwood. So this smells like grape Kool-Aid powder with sandalwood. That might sound very strange to you, but I promise you, this is one of the best smelling, classiest fragrances you can get today. Absolute stunner from the house of Cartier. In fact, out of all of their designer offerings, it has to be the best. This is just so good. So we get some whiskey up front, but it's not overly boozy. Like, you're not gonna walk into work smelling like you drank a fifth the night before. No, don't worry about that. It's got the woody characteristics as well, a slight sweetness, maybe like a caramelized vibe in a way. So there is a little bit of sweetness as well. And the ambroxanide is gonna add just an ambery characteristic, a little bit of a dustiness. I don't think this goes powdery. It doesn't go into that like dated territory at all, but there is a dustiness to this. But the star of the show is that sandalwood. If you're a sandalwood fan, this is such a good representation of sandalwood in designer perfumery. So we get that creamy, ambery, glossy type of sweet sandalwood, but there's a definite woody characteristic to the dry down of this one. And all of those notes combined give me the impression of like some sort of like grape Kool-Aid or something like that. But I mean that in the best way possible. This is technically considered an amber fougere. Some people consider it to be an oriental fougere. I totally agree with both of those characterizations. It is definitely a fougere. You can smell the classic fougere characteristics of this, but it's modernized. It's ambered up, as they say. So good. If you guys like, you know, classic fougere styles, but you want something like more modern and not dated whatsoever, and with, by the way, amazing performance, and especially if you like sandalwood, doesn't get any better than this. Pasha Parfum by Cartier. So there you have it, guys. 8 of my personal fragrance recommendations for those of you who want a daily driver, something you can wear to the office every day, something you can wear to your daily meetings, when you want to smell unique and, you know, a little bit daring, a little bit, you know, exciting, without losing that professionalism that is so important in today's world. I hope you've enjoyed my recommendations, guys. What are yours? Do you guys have any unique yet professional fragrances that you would have added to this list? Would you guys remove any of the fragrances I've included? Let's start the conversation, guys. Leave some comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, keep it real.